Welcome to our detailed guide on mastering Python list comprehensions. In this video, we'll explore everything from the basics to more advanced concepts, illustrating how these tools can speed up your coding process while maintaining clarity and efficiency. But before we start on the actual guide, we need some motivation. Why do we want to learn list comprehensions? List comprehensions are often more efficient than traditional for loops in terms of both execution time and amount of code. They allow you to express complex ideas in just a single line of code and makes it more readable by reducing the number of lines. This makes your code less prone to bugs and easier to maintain. As you can see in the example provided, these two bits of code give the same exact output, but the list comprehension only takes one line while the for loop requires you to maintain much more components. Now, we'll move on to some practice. First, let's review the basic logic of list comprehensions. Here, I'll give you some simple list comprehensions and walk you through their equivalent for loop. As we go, try to write out the expected output of these list comprehensions. Here's an example list comprehension and its input data. Pause this video, take a few minutes to write down the expected output of this question. If you don't understand the question, don't worry, we'll walk you through. Let's solve this together. This question is indeed a mouthful. There are so many conditions and it's hard to follow. Here, I've color-coded the question for you to better understand. We can also see this in a more familiar format, for loops. Here, this list comprehension is looping through the list of data and applying some filter conditions on it. Let's further split the conditions into three parts. First, it is checking if x is greater than 10. Second, if x is perfectly divisible by 2, and last, if x is perfectly divisible by 5. The code loops through items and data. In the first iteration, x equals to 10. 10 does not satisfy the first condition, so it does not make it to our output list. Next, x equals to 15. It satisfies the first condition, but not the second, so it is not in our output. 20 satisfies all three conditions, 25 does not satisfy the second condition, and 30 satisfies all three conditions. So our output contains values 20 and 30. Let's try a more complex example. Again, pause this video, take a few minutes to write down the expected output of this question. And if it helps, try to color code the question and break it down into pieces as we did for the last question to help you understand it better. This list comprehension contains a nested loop. The first loops through inner lists, the second loops through the items in the inner loops. There's one conditional filter in each loop. The first checks if the inner list has a sum greater than 10, and the second tests if the item in the list is less than 5. In the first inner list, the sum is greater than 10 and only items 1 and 2 are less than 5. In the second inner list, the sum is also greater than 10 and only 4 is less than 5. In the last inner list, the sum is greater than 10 and items 3 and 1 are less than 5. So our output would be a list of 1, 2, 4, 3, and 1. Now you should have a pretty good understanding of how to read list comprehensions. Now let's write some. The first scenario we provide is an inventory management for the grocery store. The following is the scenario description. The grocery store needs to manage its inventory effectively to meet the anticipated customer demand. The goal is to determine which products need restocking based on the current stock levels, forecasted sales, and supplier availability. Please write a list comprehension that takes in two inputs and outputs a list of tuples. The two inputs include inventory and expected deliveries. Inventory is a dictionary where each key is a product name and the value is a tuple containing current stock, sales forecast, and the supplier availability, which is a boolean. Expected deliveries is a dictionary where each key is a product name and the value is a number of units expected to be delivered. The desired outcome is to identify products that need restocking if the total available stock after expected deliveries fall short of 120% of the sales forecast and the supplier is available. Pause this video and write down your one-line list comprehension solution to this question. There are a lot to tackle in this question. We have 2 inputs now, and it seems like we have many requirements to satisfy. Here I have named all components and the inputs to make it more straightforward. And based on the query guide, I have split the requirements into 3 parts. We want to see if total available stock after expected deliveries falls short of 120% of the sales forecast. We also need to check if the supplier is available. Under these conditions, we also need to calculate the required restock amount in order to put in our output. In this first requirement, we need to see if our stock is lower than 120% of the sales forecast. To get this, we can add up the current stock and expected delivery and compare it to 120% of the sales forecast. For the second requirement, supplier status is already a Boolean, so you can use it directly. For this last requirement, we want to calculate what we can put in the output. We want to know the restock amount. The restock amount is basically the required amount minus the given amount we have. You can use the exact expressions from requirement 1. When you put all 3 components together, you get the solution. From this question, we can see that we can write complex list comprehensions through breaking down the task into little pieces that are easier for us to digest. Now that you've worked through one complex example, here's another one. This question is on scheduling events based on the resource availability. Here's the scenario description. The community center plans to schedule various events, ensuring that required resources are available and not undergoing maintenance. The objective is to create a valid schedule for events based on the resource availability for each time slot. Your solution should take in 4 inputs: events, available time slots, resource availability, and maintenance schedule. Events is a dictionary where each key is an event name, and the value is a list of resources needed for that event. Available time slots is a list of time slots during which events can be scheduled. Resource availability is a dictionary where the key is a resource and the value is another dictionary mapping the time slots to availability, which is a Boolean. And last, the maintenance schedule is a dictionary where each key is a resource and the value is another dictionary mapping time slots into maintenance status, which is also a Boolean. The desired outcome for this question is to generate a schedule of events where each event is mapped to a time slot during which all required resources are available and not under maintenance. Try to solve this question yourself. The answer is in the description section under this video. Note that our solution is not the only solution. As long as your solution outputs the same expected output as we do, you are correct. We've covered a range of topics today, from the simple list comprehension to complex scenarios that stretch the boundaries of what can be efficiently handled with this tool. Remember, the key to mastery is practice. So try out the open-ended question and continue exploring these concepts in your homeworks.